Hi everyone, this is Rohit from Digital Mastery. I'm truly excited to have Piotr Pisarz, who's the founder of Uncapped, where entrepreneurs raise capital without giving up control of the business. Uncapped has raised funding of $120 million to investors like Mouro Capital, Seedcamp, and Lakestar, among others. They offer growth capital from $10,000 to $10 million for a flat 6% fee without credit checks, personal guarantees, warrants, security of interest. Piotr has earlier worked for Google, Finch Capital, Capital, and has done his MSc Business from London Business School. Welcome to the show, Piotr.
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. So, you have an interesting journey. You did your master's from London Business School, and then you went on to work for Google, and you worked in a few VC companies. How did that interest happen in to get into the crazy world of venture capital and startups?
I was always super passionate with technology. I was very privileged to have a computer from when I was very, very young. I remember, I think I was like 4-year-old when my parents bought a first computer, not for me, but for them. I think my mom she's an accountant and she was doing some accounting on the computer. And it was a scary time because I remember there was no even Windows. You had the Microsoft DOS. And, my parents, they were afraid to even use it, don't touch, but I was a very curious kid. And I was always very passionate. And then my mom saw this passion. So one day there was this, like I lived in a small town in Poland. There was this summer class. I was 6-year-old, but there was this like summer class for the kids who were like 12-year-old to do programming, like, to do like, basic, like QBasic. I think it was a programming language. And my mom brought me to the teacher and she like said, hey, can you take Piotr for a class? And she was like, hey, these kids are twice old as him. Like, there's no way he can take the class. And I was like begging her, please just give him a chance, And she took me in and like, I literally like, I loved it. I was the best in class, like immediately. And I started to program. So this lady, she became my tutor and like, she was teaching me how to program since I was 6. Like every week I was driving to her and we were doing programming in Basic and Pascal. And, I was always passionate. But then, when the uni time happened, I wanted to do robots. So I applied to do automatics in robotics, but my mom, an accountant, she was like, hey, Piotr, you should do finance instead. There is no job in when you finish robotics. So I listened to her and I got the job got accepted to the uni to do finance, but I missed it so much. So then on the second year, I joined another uni and I was learning computer science, but I didn't finish because I already started to work at the time, just too busy. So then a couple years later, I'm in London, finished the business school. I went to the bank. I hated my job in a bank. And after 1 week as an investment banker, I knew it's not for me. So after a couple months, I applied to Google, and I don't know, they really liked me. It was a really good match. I think, they loved my passion for technology and like the day I got my bonus in bank, I quit the job and joined Google, and since then I'm in tech.
That's an interesting story. And how did your venture into you've been into a few venture funds, and how did that lead to your start with Uncapped?
It's a long story, but I was in a few funds because I think I'm a very rebellious person in general, and I think I'm a terrible employee. I think I would never ever hire myself. So the good thing about VC job is a pretty independent job. You can do what you want, more or less, kind of. But still, I often had a bit different vision than my boss for what to do, how to run the company. And so I was changing jobs quite often. I think while in Google it was fine, I was there for 4 years, but later, like after like 2 years, 1 year, I was quitting the job, and I think my third fund. And I realized actually this is not for me. Like I can't do this. I have completely different view. Like I wanted to do very different deals. And I was like, there's no way I can raise my own funds at this time. Like I'm still too junior. What can I do in my life? And I realized that, I met all these founders who are looking for capital, and they were like raising equity to spend money on Google, Facebook advertising by inventors. Like it's stupid. Like they're so inefficient. Like everyone is doing that. These guys are only funding with equity. And then I saw, what PayPal Capital is doing, Shopify Capital. I was like, hey, this is where our future is. But this product was not available in Europe. So I was like, hey, I'm gonna quit my job and build this business in Europe. And so I did it, and 2 years later, here we are.
Yeah, I think that's super fascinating because a lot of founders give up equity to buy Facebook and Google ads, and Chamath is also, who's the director of Facebook. He talked about that. It's not going to, it doesn't make much sense, but what type of businesses does Uncapped service, and what type of businesses would work on Uncapped models?
So I think the business which fit our model best is any e-commerce or SaaS business which has a proven unit economics and is growing. This is the companies which we know we can spend $100,000, pounds of euro, and we will make 120, 140, 150, 200,000 back on it. All we need is just like, we have this machine. Now we just need the capital to put money into this machine. And historically, we had to go to the VCs, and VCs were like, oh, I like this machine, I'm going to put the money there. But now we are saying to them, hey, don't go to them, don't give up this equity. It's the most expensive form of capital you can give. Come to us, we connect to their data, we analyze it, and next day we give you an offer, and you can grow a business. If you have money in your bank account, you can grow a business without dilution.
Right, and is there any consideration for funding that they need to have an X amount of revenues in the company?
Usually, we require companies to have minimum 10,000 of revenue a month.
Okay.
However, I have to say we do already make some exceptions sometimes. When we see the tremendous traction, when you see the client company doing 5,000 second month and great daily trajectory, you're like, hey, you're gonna get there. We're gonna help you anyway. But usually we would like to see this like first real traction of 10,000 a month.
Oh, okay. And how many companies have you helped in the last 2 years?
We don't disclose it today, but what I can say is that we now deployed more capital than most of the European VC funds had. Like it's in hundreds of millions, and it's a really really amazing traction we see so far.
Correct. And for first stage founders, would you advise them to go for debt financing, or do you think what sort of expenses are good to use for debt or versus equity?
Listen, I think equity plays a very valuable role in the ecosystem, and you always have to think, what type of risk are you trying to fund? Are you doing a product discovery? Are you building a new product? Are you investing in research and development? Are you trying out new channels? Then, it's very risky. And this is when you should go to the VC funds, angel, whatever, and use their financing. However, if you have de-risked it and you know what you have proven economics and you know what your business works, then it's a time to go to someone like us and, use us to scale our business.
Correct. And the VC industry has not been disrupted for a long time. Do you think it's up for disruption, especially with new models like yours and the ICOs, which unfortunately didn't really work out? But do you think it's up for disruption now?
I think every industry is disrupted. We don't see ourselves as competitors to the VC. I think we think we live in the symbiosis. We have a whole team dedicated to the relationship with venture capital funds, and we love working with them. The truth is, though, that even VCs, I think they are disrupted by themselves. Look at what Tiger Global is doing, and I think competition is good. I think competition is amazing in every single market, because actually it helps to grow the market, and the VC, people are worried that, there's more VCs and how tough it is to do the deals, but it only means there's more companies being created and more opportunities for VCs to help build amazing companies. I think this industry has to change, has to be more data driven, has to be more faster. Founders shouldn't waste 6 months or 9 months like it used to be to raise a round. If you can get the data and analysis, you should be able to do it in a couple of days and give funds to the founders instead of drag them through hundreds of meetings and waste their time.
Right, correct. And I believe that VCs add a lot of value because founders who want expertise and experience on how to build and grow the company. I think that works well. But are you concerned by the CAC, the cost of acquisition of getting a customer is increasing on traditional platforms? And what do you think is a way around for e-commerce and SaaS companies?
For the e-commerce and SaaS companies to acquire the customers more effectively.
Right.
I think good companies always will find a way to grow their business. I think you always had the traditional platforms like Facebook, Instagram, but like the most innovative companies always find the new ways. I still think that TikTok probably for many consumer brands is completely underappreciated and unused.
Right.
But the best brands always find something else. Be it influencers, be it the product, be it the customers themselves. I think that the best acquisition channel is your product at the end of the day. And like if you are in a consumer brand, you should be getting a lot of referrals from the current users, and they should be telling about your product to their friends, and making sure and bringing them as on board as your customers.
Got it. And coming back to the point where if you look at alternative financing or debt financing, there's sometimes a potential loss of advisors and board members. How can founders who are looking at debt financing, how can they mitigate the loss of these advisors?
I always thought that the idea of your investor being your advisor, it's not really a great one. Like the investor has a bit different incentives than you. Why would you have someone with different incentives to advise you? You should have someone who's fully aligned with you as your advisor. So if you are worried that taking debt means you don't get any advisors, I would say find better advisors. Find people who actually really believe in you and want to help you rather than want to benefit from you. And I think you can find advisors independently from finding investors.
All right. So would you advise founders to have more operators in their advisory board?
Yeah, always. I think having operators is always valuable. We love to have people with some specific experience, as our advisors, be it formal or informal. I have been privileged to work with a lot of amazing people who helped us on many stages of a business. And like another thing about VCs is like, as your business scales, you need different type of people. The advisor who was great when you were starting, it's a very different advisor you need when you are a much bigger company. So it's important, to be able to change them or add new ones. Have a broad network of them. Someone who's helping you in marketing is someone different than someone helping you with people projects or hiring or technical development.
Right. And this is for D2C brands and obviously like SaaS companies also. What suggestions would you have for them if they want to go from 7 figures to 9 figures? Would you suggest them to go into physical stores as well, or would you suggest them to keep it online only?
I have to say, I don't know. I guess it depends. I think, I see more and more companies being successful in omnichannel. So I think there is a big opportunity there. At the same time, it's a completely different business model. And, it might defocus you from your current operations. I think it really depends. What are you doing? Some companies prefer to build physical stores, others go to partners. And, if you're a clothing company, you can either go to Macy's or Selfridges, or you can build your own store. And you also have offline presence, or maybe you do it completely differently. I think, you should really evaluate it on the case-by-case basis.
Correct. And why do you think there's so many opportunities in the D2C space? A lot of people are quitting their jobs and they're building companies on platforms like Amazon, eBay. Why do you think there's been such a big boom in the last 5 years, especially?
That's a great question. I think it's a combination of several factors. First of all, is customer habits, right? Customers are used to online. Like I think 10 years ago, it was much more, people were not used to buying online, but also it was much harder. Now the checkout flows are optimized, your credit cards are secure, the delivery network is super efficient. You can get, stuff delivered within a day, sometimes even. It's so much easier to buy things. You have Apple Pay and Google Pay. It's so much easier to the checkout. The devices are much more popular. In the past, you only had a computer which you used probably like once a day, for an hour, and you were not online. Now you have your phone with you all the time, and to buy something is just 2 clicks away. So that's one thing. Second thing is product innovation. I think that with more and more startups being successful, more people are inspired to challenge the status quo and create new, better products. I think we in Uncapped see so many amazing brands, from cosmetics to clothes to some sports good and anything else, really challenging the status quo and making things more beautiful, more practical, or cheaper, or just better than the current products. Corporations are very not innovative, and I think people are tired of buying all the clothes in Zara and other big chains. They want to be more individual. They want higher quality products at the same price.
All right. And coming back to e-commerce platforms like Amazon and eBay, do you also help those founders, and do you help those businesses? Because I used to run a D2C brand which was just on Amazon platform as well as on Shopify, but because of the funding issues, I had to shut shop. But do you also help these companies, and what are the sort of metrics you look at?
Yeah, I think we have several companies operating both on eBay, Amazon, and Shopify, Magento, WooCommerce, or any other platform. I think these are very different kind of companies with different target audiences, different segment. Right. But we are willing to work with any online business actually. So be it SaaS, be it e-commerce, but we have insurance companies, online insurance companies. We have so many interesting companies which are not only the D2C brands even.
Oh, interesting. Right. And, you talked about the growth in the last 2 years, and, you've been remotely working. But, COVID had been an inflection time for a lot of startups. And, obviously for Uncapped, you've seen a huge growth. But what advice would you give to young founders on how do you cope with tough times? Because there's just too many things happening in the company. Any advice for founders?
It's a good question. I think how to cope with tough times. Find someone to talk to. I think what really helped me usually is to have some confident, have some trusted advisor or a friend. Ideally, someone who's also a founder who you can talk to. Often you don't even need advice, but it's just good to have someone to explain your thoughts, explain your thought process, get an external perspective. Get sleep and exercise. I think I always notice that when I'm not sleeping, and it's really impacting my energy levels, my mood, and I'm getting much more stressed about the things when this happens. It's easy to say to do, but I would also encourage founders to think that they are more than their company. I think when you're a founder, it's so easy to tie your identity to the company you're building.
Yeah.
You have to remember that it's not true. You are more than just the company. The company might fail, might be successful, but you are you, and you are an independent person. So try to get some external perspective. Also think it comes with time. I noticed that over time I think you get more used to ups and downs and this crazy founder roller coaster, and you handle things better.
Right. Yeah. No, I think this is great advice. And when you started off, you had less resources, but over time, your resources have gone up. But how do you evaluate your making process from when you were a small company to now in the growth stage? Are there any changes in your mindset and your decision making framework when it comes to making decisions?
That's an interesting question. I think when you're bigger, you can put more bets. So, I always, there's an interesting book called Thinking in Bets. And I always like to, think in bets. Hey, like if you're making a decision, you're kind of assuming that something will happen, and will it be you'll assume whether it will happen or not, or what the outcome will be. I think the bigger you are, the more bets you can afford, or more riskier bets you can take, because suddenly, like, hey, it doesn't matter any much. So you can, for example, bet on when you start, there's only very limited number of features you can build, and you have to make sure they are the right features. If you're bigger, you can have more people working on some crazier bets, like this feature or this product may completely fail, but it's okay because I have the rest of a business which is supporting me or making. So I think it's important to understand when you're bigger, or what decisions are really, really material, and like this is the decision where you cannot make a mistake, or whatever this, or which parts of a company are complete bets and you are willing to lose them. And I think you have to evaluate them very differently. I think as a startup, speed is very important, and like if the decision is a decision which can be reversed or is in a bigger scheme immaterial, you should be very, very fast in taking this decision, because taking time, it actually costs you more than the negative outcome of the decision. However, if this decision is like a one-day door and you cannot fix it, and it will have a really material impact on the company, this is a decision you have to take much more time thinking on, and you have to make sure you do it right.
Interesting. You talked about speed is important, and I completely agree with that. But do you think decisions can be reversible in the sense, like you've taken a decision, a big risk, but how do you evaluate taking risk and changing the decisions when the risks are not in your favor?
Can you explain what you mean?
Yeah. So do you think decisions can be reversible? You going, like, you want to enter a new market, but then you for example, you fail in that market. But do you think it is possible to reverse such decisions?
Of course, like this is a decision you can reverse, right? Like, hey, we are investing, we don't see the traction, we're shutting down the office, we're firing people, we're out of the market. But for example, taking some investor on board, this is a irreversible decision. Once you took him on board, you cannot take it. And this is a decision you have to evaluate very, very seriously. Another decision can be like, I don't know, you have a sales team and you hire, several salespeople. If one of them doesn't work out, it's not a big deal. Like you can make more mistakes. But if you are running a process and you're hiring head of sales and you spend 6 months hiring this person, and this person, like, you make the decision and this person will come on board, and this is after like 3 months, you realize this is a bad decision. Wow, you lost probably 9 months plus another many months of hiring. So you lost a year of not having a VP of sales, for example. So this is a decision you actually should be taking more carefully. So I'm not a huge fan of I think when hiring senior people, very often we took much more time than we should have, but usually it's really paid back. Like I think our head of product took us, I think, 6-9 months to hire. But we ended up with really, really outstanding, amazing person. But then on the sales side, we did turn through some salespeople because you just can afford it, you can, and this is easy thing to fix.
Very interesting. And coming back to what you mentioned about talent acquisition, what are some of the biggest lessons you've learned when it comes to acquiring talent? And what you talked about, taking time, but what has worked well in the past for you?
It's interesting. I said about taking time to hire. At the same time, for example, most interesting learning for us was, engineering market is so competitive now that, you have to hire an engineer within 48 hours. Like We now try to, for example, when the engineer comes in, we try to, give him an offer within 48 hours from first conversation to the last one, because it's such an interesting space. I think what we learned, like, we are a fully remote company, so I think we really learned that amazing people are everywhere. I just checked, today, and we have people in many countries now. And you wouldn't even think, like, that you can hire amazing salespeople covering UK market in Greece, but you can, and in many other places. So I think, when I started the company, I thought we will always be in the office company. Like, I thought I couldn't imagine not having employees in the office and not spending time with them and not, overseeing them. Now we are fully remote and we don't plan to have office ever again.
That's interesting. And yeah, when you start off early, you might have generalists who come on board, but is it possible for have early employees graduate themselves to become leaders and specialize in one particular role?
Of course, I think I think this should be the superpower of every startup. I think as a startup, you succeed because you manage to find these rough diamonds, people who, in the they might not come from a best school, they might not come from a best company, but you identify them as a really high potential people, future leaders, because usually you can't afford the people who on paper look the best, because they will go to the investment bank or some consulting company. There's no way you can pay this level of salaries. So you have to find the people who are better than them, but just maybe they didn't realize that, or the market didn't realize that. And I think this is how you succeed. I think I'm very proud because I think we managed to find a lot of those people. And I think this is how you build a successful company. Because these people then find another amazing people, because A-level people bring A-level people, but B-level people bring C-level people. So I think you have to be very cutthroat on making sure that people you bring to the company are these A-level people.
Got it. And Uncapped is like one of the biggest revenue providers in Europe. But are you in most of the markets in Europe, or how do you evaluate which market to enter, and what are your thoughts on entering to US and Asia in the future?
We are already in the US, so we believe that we can be the biggest financial company for startups in the world. We don't see ourselves as an RBF provider or revenue-based lender. We see ourselves as a neobank serving startups from the moment they are created to their IPO. We want to challenge the whole status quo of financial industry for these entrepreneurs and help them in any way possible as they're scaling. And to do that, we have to be a global company. So we don't limit ourselves to Europe, and we are already in the US.
Oh, interesting. And any plans to go into Asia and Southeast Asia in future?
No comment.
Got it. And Piotr, before the call, you talked about that you're fully remote and you've worked out of different places, and I believe you're in Berlin right now. What's been your passion about nomadic travel, and how do you manage your work with travel?
That's an interesting question. I actually don't travel because of passion. I travel for the reason for me not being at home at one place is I think I want to be able to always challenge myself and challenge my thinking, and to do that you need to meet people from different backgrounds and different places. I think I want to meet founders in different backgrounds in different countries. I want to get the inspiration from different locations. And I think if you are in one city all the time, you kind of are fall into this box, and you are not you can't touch all these different cultures. How I travel, working remotely now is very easy. Like just need a laptop and that's it really. I think my philosophy is I work very hard during the week, so I never travel during the week. I always travel during the weekend, and I change location like once every few weeks. So it's not a big deal, and it allows me to meet founders in many places and clients, employees in different locations. So it's very beneficial, I think, for someone building a company.
Yeah, and it's interesting because in 2020 a lot of people have gone remote, and but VC investing was happening mostly in some of the more important hubs and cities like London and Silicon Valley. Do you think because of COVID it's going to change, and people can build unicorns out of smaller cities and unknown startup hubs?
I think absolutely. I think especially with remote work and investors investing remotely, nothing limits you from building company anywhere.
Right.
I know a lot of people who are building very cool companies in weird places, and I think the real location you're building is online. The location is arbitrary. I don't know where my people are. I don't know where my team is. Sometimes I have a call with them and they're like, I'm dialing in from Croatia. I'm dialing in from Denmark. I think we have someone like in a camper van working with us remotely from a camper van. Like, people work from anywhere. And I think I know companies built where founders never met themselves in person. And, these are a successful company worth tens of millions. Like I know such a companies. I never met most of my investors in person. So I think, the world has changed, and I think it will only keep changing this way.
Got it. And, I quickly want to do the top three. What's your favorite business book?
Oh, plenty. My favorite business book. I like The Hard Thing About Hard Things. Of course, I like 0 to 1. I like Intelligent Investor. I have a huge list of great business books. I try to read everything new in this subject. Another category of books I really like is like biographies. So I really liked Sam Walton's biography, and I think it's a bit older book, but I still recommend it to everyone to read. For everyone to read.
Yeah, I think all of these are great books, and Hard Things of Hard Things is one of the most mentioned favorite books by investors and founders alike. And if you could go back in time when you started working on Uncapped, what is the one thing you would have focused on or done anything differently?
That's a very good question. I think one thing I would have done differently. I think when we were starting, we hit a very difficult moment when the pandemic started. I think when pandemic hit, we were just starting our fundraise, and this was the moment when investors panicked, market panicked, our investors panicked, and like everyone, we also panicked a bit, and we stopped for a moment. Like we froze hiring. We stopped growing as aggressively as we planned. I think this is the biggest mistake we've done, because of course we had like hindsight 2020, but like it turned out to be the such a huge accelerator for the space we are in. So I think the one thing I wish I could have changed is just keep going as aggressively as we were, instead of pausing for at least 2-3 months at the start of pandemic.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting insight. And do you have any favorite online tools? Example, Gmail, Slack, Zoom.
I'm sorry, say again, please.
Do you have any favorite online tools? Example, Gmail, Slack, Zoom.
Oh, WhatsApp by far.
We'll put that in show notes. Piotr, what is the best way people can reach out to you and know more about Uncapped?
I think the best way is to reach out to me on Twitter or LinkedIn, and yeah, if happy, I check check both medium very, very often. So yeah, looking forward to connect with everyone.
We'll put that in the show notes. Piotr, thank you so much for taking out time and speaking to us. I really enjoyed my conversation with you.
Thank you so much for having me.